You're tired, your cycle's all over the place, your sleep is off, you wake up in the middle of the night, can't sleep all the way through the night, and you're wondering what's off in your body. And all of your labs have come back though, and things seem pretty normal according to your doctor. What if there were simple and natural ways to support your body's natural progesterone levels without having to use progesterone replacement therapy? Oftentimes, women are put on progesterone replacement therapy before they really need it. If you're younger than the perimenopausal menopausal years, so really anything under the age of 43, which is the average age of onset of perimenopause, then you should not be taking progesterone replacement therapy unless there is an acute special circumstance. Your body should be making progesterone on its own. And if it's not, we want to investigate why, rather than using a Band-Aid, which is taking progesterone, to mask the issue that's at play. Low progesterone is a sign from the body that there's something deeper going on, and in today's video, we're going to uncover those top root causes of what's driving low progesterone. We'll talk about the top science-backed ways to support progesterone production using food, supplementation, and lifestyle practices. I've helped dozens of women uncover the root causes behind their low progesterone levels and reverse it so that they can start to make adequate progesterone and go on to naturally conceive or even just maintain regular cycle length and sleep through the night. And now I'm going to walk you through exactly how to do it. Before we get into it, let me tell you a brief story about a client I worked with. We're going to call her Jill. When Jill came to work with me, she had recently recovered her period from what's called hypothalamic amenorrhea, which essentially is where you haven't had a menstrual cycle for at least 6 months, and the causative factors are related to the HPA axis, so the body's been under a stress response, and that's what's driving the lack of menstruation. Now, she had already been cycling for a couple of months at this time, but she was still dealing with low estrogen and low progesterone issues. And this was something we uncovered through lab testing. But to her, what she knew was that her cycles were back, but they just weren't regular, and things seemed to be a little bit off with how she was feeling every day. Well, we uncovered some of the root causes that were driving it. Despite her already exercising and eating a really healthy diet and being on some great supplementation, we were able to go a step deeper, get a little bit more granular with what was actually really driving the low estrogen and progesterone. And we also got her to start tracking her cycles so that she could start to understand how things like her basal body temperature and cervical mucus changes were actually indicative of her shifting hormone levels, and how she could use this as insight into her progesterone levels. Well, fast forward, after just a couple of months of implementing these practices, not only did she improve her estrogen and progesterone levels, but she actually went on to conceive naturally and is now pregnant. How exciting for her. All right, let's get into those top root causes. Now, the first one is simply that we're just not ovulating. Ovulation is required in order for progesterone to be made, and that's because progesterone comes from the corpus luteum, which is made via the process of ovulation. So I like to look at implementing what I call a low stress week, the week before you are supposed to ovulate. Now, supposed to ovulate can vary depending on your own menstrual cycle history. Some women ovulate around day 14, and if that's the case, we might start the low stress week around day 7. Others ovulate closer to day 21, and so for you, we might start this low stress week closer to day 14. Wherever you start it, we want to look at driving down the stressors that could be telling the body this is not a safe place to reproduce. And we want to really send these clear signals that this is a safe place to reproduce. We have adequate reserves on board. We have great nutritional status. We are sleeping adequately. We are not overdoing it with exercise. We're controlling our nervous system. All of these are going to send positive feedback signals to the brain, which is what controls the LH or luteinizing hormone release, which then tells our ovaries to make progesterone and essentially to ovulate. Without ovulation, we're not going to be making adequate progesterone. So this is a very key step to the whole ovulation and progesterone production process. Now, if you are ovulating, but maybe you're still dealing with low progesterone issues, then this can still work for you because it can actually help strengthen that stimulus from the brain down to the ovaries and help actually improve that corpus luteum function. So it's a great strategy. And if you're unsure exactly what that looks like, I walk you through more how to do it in one of our workshops is included in our program, Strength and Hormones. It's our daily workout program that's specially curated for women with hormonal imbalances like low progesterone. The second root cause can be low or inadequate fat intake. Progesterone is actually made from cholesterol, and cholesterol is a substance that both our liver makes, but that we also can consume through our diet. There was actually a study that was published in 2007 that showed that women that had a higher amount of saturated fat intake in their diet had a stronger predictor of ovulation. Saturated fat is the main fat source that's found in animal proteins, things like eggs, as well as grass-fed beefs and poultry. So if we're only getting your fat sources from plant-based sources, this may be something to investigate further, is if we could actually shift more of those fat sources over to some of those animal-based sources. Just want to make sure that they're still high quality so that you're getting the absolute best nutritional profile. The quality of the animal-based sources does impact things like the amount of omega-3 fatty acids and omega-6 fatty acids. And omega-3s are also another substance that can help support regular ovulation versus omega-6s, whereas with omega-6s, when they are consumed in excess, they can actually negatively impact ovulation frequency. The third root cause may be blood sugar instability. Now, when we talk about blood sugar, oftentimes people immediately think that they are dealing with high blood sugar and that they actually need to work on lowering your blood sugar. But what we actually see more commonly in practice is women experiencing low blood sugar issues. And the reason why this can impact ovulation is because when your body gets into a hypoglycemic environment, which essentially means low blood sugar, your body releases cortisol, which is a stress hormone that's also a glucocorticoid. And so cortisol is able to actually break down glucose in our liver to maintain our body's levels of blood sugar if we aren't eating adequately to support that blood sugar response. We often see this happening in people usually in the middle of the day between lunch and dinner, and sometimes as well around workouts or even in the middle of the night when they're sleeping. So it can be really helpful to glean insight into your body's blood sugar control, possibly by either getting some labs tested that look at blood sugar averages like A1C and glycated serum protein, or utilizing something like a continuous glucose monitor that actually tracks your blood sugar over the span of 24 hours so that you can see where some of these issues are falling into play. Now, we also will look at your diet and assess where there could be issues that we're just gleaning insight from a simple dietary recall, or also providing you with education around what an optimal blood sugar day looks like and how to pair foods together, how to know the right timing and food sources that you want to eat together to be able to sustain regular normal blood sugar levels and not get into both hyperglycemic as well as hypoglycemic events. On the other side, if maybe you are experiencing hyperglycemic issues, that can also impact this process. And that's because when we have a hyperglycemic event, our body overcompensates a hormone called insulin, and oftentimes this can cause a rebound hypoglycemic event, which again then sends that cortisol to be able to mobilize that glucose back into our bloodstream. So if you're someone that's actually dealing with more hyperglycemic issues, which I would say is anything that's greater than a 30-point blood sugar excursion from a meal, so that would be tracking your blood sugar about an hour after eating, and if your blood sugar jumps up more than 30 milligrams per deciliter, that's a good indicator to me that there's some hyperglycemic events that are happening. You may try out a couple blood sugar balancing strategies, one for starting with your meals and rearranging them to make sure that there's adequate protein, fiber, and fat there to be able to help blunt that blood sugar response. You could also look at walking after meals, which can actually help lower that postprandial or post-meal blood sugar response. Also trying to build more lean muscle mass by strength training more consistently. That's going to help you be able to add more muscle, and muscle is going to help improve that blood sugar control. And you can also look at things like using acetic acid, which is the compound that's in the vinegar, prior to meals. This has been shown to actually help reduce that postprandial blood sugar response as well in some individuals. The fourth root cause can be low leptin levels. Leptin is a hormone that is made by our fat cells that tells our brain if there's enough energy reserves on board. And we often see individuals with low leptin levels. There can also be a situation of what's called leptin resistance, though, where you have adequate leptin levels, but they're actually pretty high, which means that your body is leptin resistant. And so the hormone isn't working as efficiently as it should in telling the body that there's enough energy on board. Leptin's really important important because it actually is the central governor of the reproductive system. It's what tells the brain if there's enough energy on board to be able to reproduce. So if we have low leptin levels, the body's essentially sensing that there's not enough energy on board to support reproduction, even if there is. So some things that can actually help boost leptin levels: one, omega-3 fatty acids can be a really great tool. Those are what are found in things like salmon, sardines, and fatty fish, and can also be supplemented. Also, ensuring that you're eating adequate carbohydrate intake. Carbohydrates are essential for supporting leptin because leptin is actually induced via insulin, which is that blood sugar regulating hormone. And overall, just eating adequate amount of caloric intake. So we may want to look at is working on increasing your caloric intake slowly over time, not for the purpose of weight gain, but for the purpose of actually helping to be able to resensitize this hormonal signal that's going to slowly increase these leptin levels. We do it time and time again with clients that we work with, and they successfully go on to increase their leptin levels while maintaining their normal body weight simply through the strategies that we're utilizing to be able to target this leptin hormone. And that in turn helps to be able to support more robust ovulation. The sixth root cause may be an elevated cortisol response. Cortisol is an important piece of ovulation because cortisol and progesterone compete for the same resources. They're both made from pregnenolone. Pregnenolone is made from cholesterol in our mitochondria. But when the body senses there's not enough energy on board or not enough cholesterol on board, then it's actually going to divert those resources away and use them for cortisol, because cortisol is a survival hormone. It has to be made. The reproductive system doesn't have to happen. It's kind of like a nice to have is what I call it. So if the body senses there's not enough energy, it's going to take what is there and fund it towards cortisol. And that's going to take those resources away from progesterone. It's a process that we call the pregnenolone steal. That's essentially where the body is taking or stealing those resources over towards making more cortisol. So we want to make sure that we're thinking about stress response. And I talked at the very beginning about the nature of utilizing something like the low stress week, but it also could look like working on your overall stress bucket all 30 days out of the month, not just that week before ovulation. Remember that stress is not just psychological stress. Stress is also nutritional stress. If the body senses there's not enough micronutrients or not enough energy on board, or there's low blood sugar, that can all send a cortisol response. If we're over exercising and under recovering, that can also create a chronic stress response. If we're not getting in enough sodium, which is a key electrolyte to making adequate cortisol, this can also be a factor involved here. If we are not sleeping well, if we're not sleeping at least 7 to 9 hours per night and getting good quality restorative sleep that has adequate REM and deep sleep cycles, about 20% of your total sleep length for each of those REM and deep sleep cycles, this can also be something to investigate further. Or if there's actually something within the body, something that's more biological that's causing this chronic stress response. Sometimes it's active infections in the gut. Sometimes it's active viral infections or high viral load that's causing the stress response as well. But that's where we're going to utilize more of our root cause-based testing to see what else could be going on deeper under the hood that might be triggering the stress response, even if all these other factors have been controlled for and you're doing really well with sleep and exercise, nutrition, so on and so forth. The sixth thing we want to look at is the thyroid. Hypothyroidism, or even just low thyroid function, can cause low progesterone. The thyroid is essential for helping support progesterone production in the corpus luteum. And something that we often see with low thyroid or hypothyroidism is called luteal phase defect. And this is where you may be ovulating and you make progesterone, but the progesterone doesn't stay elevated. And we can see this evidenced by either low basal body temperatures. So if you're checking your temperature with a thermometer under your tongue each morning when you first wake up, you might see that your temperature spikes after ovulation, but then it kind of drops back down to those pre-ovulation temperatures. And then maybe it comes back up, drops back down. It's not staying elevated at least half to a full degree above your follicular temperature baseline. that can indicate that there's something called luteal phase defect happening, and this oftentimes goes back to the thyroid. So with the thyroid, we want to, one, first and foremost, is rule out if there's an autoimmune process at play that's driving this, or if it's simply a hormonal disorder that's at play. And if it is simply hormonal, then we want to make sure that we're restoring nutrients that are involved in making and converting adequate free thyroid hormones. We want to make sure we have adequate selenium and magnesium, iodine, potassium, zinc. These are all key minerals that help in the production of thyroid hormones, but also that conversion of the inactive form T4 over to the active form free T3, which is the usable form of our thyroid hormones that actually helps control processes like reproduction. If you feel like you may need some mineral support, check out our Mineral Magic supplement. This is a great all-in-one chelated mineral complex that has all these minerals in the most bioavailable forms to be able to support the thyroid hormone function. Number 7 is vitamin B6. Vitamin B6 is an incredible nutrient for supporting the corpus luteum function. The corpus luteum is where progesterone is made. There's been research done that's shown that vitamin B6 intake of 100 to 200 milligrams when supplemented per day can actually help boost progesterone levels. And clinically in practice, we actually see a correlation between individuals that have low progesterone output and also have low B6 levels. This is a vitamin that we can test. We can test this through some of our micronutrient testing that we do within our one-on-one practice. You want to make sure that you're not overdoing it on B6. Although it is a water-soluble nutrient, it can cause neurological damage if over-supplemented. So generally staying within that range of 100 to 200 milligrams per day total between all of the supplementation that you might be utilizing is a really important component to making sure you're getting enough for progesterone, but that we're not overdoing it. Another nutrient that has been shown to help the corpus luteum and help with progesterone production is vitamin C. Vitamin C is a vitamin, but also an antioxidant. And research has shown that supplementing with about 750 to 1,000 milligrams per day can actually help boost progesterone production. One of the ways it does this is because vitamin C can actually help lower cortisol, because vitamin C is most concentrated in the adrenal glands, which is where cortisol is made. So it's a key process to the stress hormone response. Vitamin C is also an antioxidant. So if the body's under quite a bit of oxidative stress, the body's going to be utilizing up more of this vitamin C and ultimately more of our body's antioxidant pool to combat oxidative stress. We can also test vitamin C levels through a micronutrient panel as well. And we often, again, see vitamin C being low. When vitamin C is low, we like to ask the bigger question in terms of what could be depleting it. What is driving the oxidative stress process? And so oftentimes we'll also test for oxidative stress markers alongside of vitamin C. And if those also come back elevated, indicating that there is oxidative stress, then we'll take things a step deeper to understand what's driving the oxidative stress. We sometimes will find things like heavy metals, we'll find issues with over-exercising or a high allostatic load, or things like mycotoxins or mold illness that can be at the root that's actually depleting the body of this vitamin C pool and oxidative stress. Oxidative stress is a really key piece to supporting reproduction and ovulation, because if there's oxidative stress, it can actually damage our oocytes, which are those eggs in your ovaries. And this is a key piece to supporting the reproductive process. You can both eat and supplement vitamin C. Vitamin C can be found in a lot of your citrus fruits, as well as things like bell peppers and strawberries. One of my personal favorite food-based ways to supplement it in higher dosages of camu powder is it's a whole food vitamin C source that also contains large amounts of things like copper. Vitamin C can also be supplemented in a buffered form or liposomally for best absorption. And these are supplements that you can utilize to be able to help increase your total vitamin C intake. I do recommend that if you do choose to supplement with vitamin C, that instead of taking large dosages less frequently, that you take smaller dosages more frequently. Vitamin C has a half-life of about 3 to 4 hours and can only absorb effectively at about the rate of 250 milligrams every couple of hours. So we want to make sure that we're maxing out that absorption rate, but that we're not overdoing it, because that can actually cause loose stools, and then our body's not actually able to utilize all that vitamin. So instead, we like to use a bit smaller dosages more frequently throughout the day, so maybe 3 or 4 times per day, to really maximize our body's vitamin C levels. As you can see, there are so many different root causes that are driving low progesterone. Simply just slapping some progesterone replacement therapy on it really doesn't do the body justice in understanding what's causing the low progesterone in the first place, and oftentimes it can actually mask more serious issues at play. That's why at Functional Fueling, our approach is to really get to the root cause and understanding what is causing the low progesterone and how can we effectively get the body making more progesterone, get the corpus luteum functioning more robustly to support more robust ovulation and more robust progesterone output to be able to help support issues like sleep loss, short periods, spotting before periods, or even difficulties with conception. If you want to learn more about our approach and how we support low progesterone issues through addressing the root causes, head on over to our website at functionalfueling.com/coaching-page to learn more.